Celine Dion read the opening lineups in legendary fashion, and the superstar Canadian icon was in the stands for a bit of a stinker as the Bruins lost to the Rangers, but our hearts will go on because the Florida Panthers also lost in the race for top spot in the Atlantic Division.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans? Happy Friday and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things spoke to be. Thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine. Free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Please do hit that subscribe button so that you never miss a thing. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. The Bruins did lose last night by a score of 5-2 to the New York Rangers. We all know that tragically hip lead singer, rest in peace, Gord Downie, was a massive Bruins fan. There was another Canadian icon in the house last night, Celine Dion. Read out the starting lineups, sat in a suite, but it was not a sweet time for her as she witnessed a Bruins loss. We'll get into what went wrong here in a moment. A quick reminder that you can find the podcast on social media at Locked NHL Bruins, and you can find me, my hockey thoughts, dad jokes at Ian C. McLaren, although I'm low-key taking a little bit of a social media break personally right now, but still pumping out content on the podcast side of things. Now, what went wrong last night for the Boston Bruins? It was such a good start for this team. The starting lineup was perfectly in tune as Celine Dion, and if you haven't seen it, go check out the Bruins social channels to watch Celine Dion read the Bruins starters before their game against the New York Rangers. She even chirped Brandon Carlo for being tarps off as she walked in and sang Danton Heinen's name in beautiful register. What a performance she delivered, a Grammy-worthy performance, 5-time Grammy Award winner. Such hits as My Heart Will Go On, Beauty and the Bees is what was on display last night as Celine Dion in the stands. The Bruins, a beastly performance, and not in a good way, in the 5-2 loss to the New York Rangers. It got started off well with Jake DeBrusk scoring his 18th of the season. However, after Artemi Panarin tied it up in the second period, Jake DeBrusk inadvertently knocked the puck into his own net on an attempted, diving block to make it 2-1 for the Rangers. JB, Justin Brazeau, stayed red hot with his fourth goal of the season, third in 2 games to tie things up, but then things got away from the Bruins as Adam Fox scored the game winner about, 40 seconds later, and then Mika Zibanejad, Artemi Panarin scoring empty net goals. Panarin capping the night with a hat trick, and the Rangers taking the season series from the Bruins with 3 wins, 2 of which came in regulation by a margin of 3 goals. The other was an overtime win in Boston back in December. So if the Bruins are looking at the Rangers as a measuring stick for Eastern Conference supremacy, well, they have fallen far short. And, the Bruins have been playing pretty well coming into this one, but the Rangers, for whatever reason, really have their number. And, they have big-time players in Artemi Panarin. Mika Zibanejad hasn't had the best season. And it wasn't even Igor Shesterkin who was in net. It was Jonathan Quick who made 24 saves. The Rangers have won 6 of their past. Jonathan Quick earned his 391st win to tie Ryan Miller for most in NHL history by a U.S.-born goalie. Full credit to him. He's had a real resurgence here with the New York Rangers. Jim Montgomery said the Rangers checked really well. The Bruins didn't. And he didn't think that they competed hard enough on pucks. Jake DeBrusk added, the Rangers played a simple game. Seemed like they always had numbers back, and that made it hard for the Bruins to get through, to skate through, to penetrate the offensive zone, and they didn't make the right decisions at right times. I know he's probably speaking largely to himself there in that situation. Hampus Lindholm added, they can be a little smarter in keeping the momentum there, the Bruins' way, making the opposition chase a little bit more. That's what they can learn from this game. Hampus Lindholm, of course, turning the puck over behind the net, and Panarin's centering pass bounced off DeBrusk's stick and through Swayman's leg. That was a real turning point. And while the Bruins were able to tie it up after that goal, it still was fairly demoralizing, and it could have been an opportunity for the Bruins to build rather than take a step back. 5-on-5, the Rangers kind of dominated this one. 64% of the shot attempts, 54% of total shots, 70% of the scoring chances, 76.5% of the high danger chances, and it got slightly better in all situations, but this was a real wake-up call for Boston. Neither team went or scored on the power play. All goals scored at even strength, although perhaps a bit closer than the score indicated, as it was two empty netters that sealed it. But still, the Rangers had the lion's share of shots, high danger chances, and as you can imagine, the expected goals were indeed in their favor. 3.53, 2.56, and the final score showed you where the disparity was there. But in real terms, without those empty netters, it was basically a 3-2 game. And, I hate to say it, but Jeremy Swayman kind of struggling a little bit these days. He had an .897 save percentage in this one. Of course, that goal from DeBrusk was incredibly unfortunate, but he's gone 3 games now, sub 900 in terms of save percentage, and that big few you're hearing in the ether could be coming from Don Sweeney, as there's some relief over the fact that Linus Ullmark decided not to waive his no-trade clause. We're going to discuss the goaltending situation here as the podcast continues, but real quick, again, disappointing effort in front of Celine Dion. How could you let her down? But, sometimes that's just the way it is. If you're hiring, there's no better place to get assistance than Indeed. Indeed is the best hiring platform to attract not only the quality candidates, but also the quantity that you need as well to choose your best candidate. Indeed is the hiring partner where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. The only job site where you're guaranteed to find quality applications that meet your must-have requirements, or else you don't pay. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites hoping to find candidates with the right skills, one powerful hiring partner can help you do it all. With Instant Match, as soon as you sponsor a post, you get a short list of quality candidates, and you pay only for quality applications that meet your must-have requirements. Start hiring right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. This offer is valid through March 31st. Indeed.com/lockedon to claim your $75 credit before March 31st. That's Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply, but if you need to hire, you need Indeed. Thank you so much once again for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine. And if you find yourself watching Fox Sports or ESPN all day, you might have to turn on the volume with all that shouting. But you can make the switch to Locked On Sports today, which is a free 24/7 streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And our team did indeed lose last night. Thankfully, so did the Florida Panthers. They were shut out by the red hot Nashville Predators, maintaining a 3-point difference between these two teams, although Florida does have 2 games in hand and a much better goal differential, I should add, plus 56 compared to plus 42 for the Bruins. With the win, the Rangers pull to within 1 point of the Bruins in the overall standings, tied with the Vancouver Canucks. Both of those teams have a game in hand on the Bruins, putting Boston third in terms of point percentage. 686 for the Rangers and Canucks, 683 for the Bruins. And again, we don't really necessarily care about the President's Trophy. We know that quote-unquote curse can rear its ugly head. First in the Atlantic would be nice, just to guarantee a lesser opponent than the Toronto Maple Leafs in round 1. There's a 9-point gap between the Maple Leafs and the second wildcard team in Detroit, a 5-point gap between Tampa and Toronto. So, yeah, I guess it's a matter of pick your poison. But the topic at hand at the moment is the play of the 2 goaltenders over the past couple of weeks since really the trade deadline, which was March 8th. Over those past 2 weeks, Bruins goaltenders have not looked on the same level. Let's just be honest. They've played 3 games apiece. Linus Ullmark has gone a perfect 3-0 with a .955 save percentage, a 1.34 goals against average. Jeremy Swayman's gone 1-2 with an .848 save percentage and a .405 goals against average. That is quite a large gap in a tandem that has basically been on par with one another over the course of their tenure as a tandem. What does that mean? Well, probably not too much because it is a small sample size, 3 games apiece. But if we're talking about who is bringing it here down the stretch and who you might want to rely on coming up in the playoffs, you're looking at Linus Ullmark right now as your game 1 starter. Not to take anything away from Jeremy Swayman and his play all season long, all career, really. And not to say that he shouldn't get some playing time in the postseason, because we have talked so much about the importance of this tandem, how the rotation benefits the Boston Bruins, how their success this season has so largely been built on goaltending. They would be nowhere without this tandem. Even if they just had one of these guys, you see teams that have bigger drop-offs between their 1A and 1B, or even 1-2. Some teams have 1-2, not a 1A, 1B situation. And you see, these planned losses, quote unquote, with your backup in there. You throw them in there on a back-to-back against a much better team. But with the Bruins, they've had an opportunity to win each and every night because of this 2-headed goalie monster. Right now, you might want to move away from the rotation because one is playing much better than the other. Now, next week, of course, there is a back-to-back situation, so that will factor into it. They do play tomorrow afternoon against the Philadelphia Flyers. Then they go back-to-back in Florida against the Panthers and Lightning. And then a couple days off before playing the Washington Capitals. And then they have 2 tough games to begin April in Nashville and Carolina. If I'm Jim Montgomery right now, I'm going Ullmark against the Flyers. I'd go Ullmark again against the Panthers. So that's 2 starts in a row. Give Swayman the next night in Tampa Bay. And then, depending on how those games go, but based on recent play, I go right back to Ullmark for the game against Washington. Then maybe go Ullmark again against Nashville. And then put Swayman in the game against Carolina. So giving Ullmark, this upcoming road trip 4 out of the 6 starts instead of 3 and 3. That's just what I would think right now. Perhaps that would motivate Swayman to get things going. But you have a reigning Vezina Trophy winner. You might as well ride him while he is super hot and see how things go. And maybe give Swayman some time to sort things out and get things going in his own way. Let me know what you think. Hit me up in the comments on YouTube or on social media. Discuss the current state of the rotation. Coming up, we are going to preview Saturday's game against the Philadelphia Flyers. We'll do that here as the podcast continues. Let's talk about FanDuel here for a moment. And of course, the NCAA tournament is well underway. You can say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tournament. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. New customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines, even pick who's going to win it all. And it's not just for NCAA basketball. You can, of course, get in on the action with basketball, hockey, baseball coming up. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down those nets. The Boston Bruins have a matinee affair coming up this weekend against the Philadelphia Flyers. It is a rematch of last Saturday's game in which the Bruins won. The Flyers played last night, losing 3-2 to the Carolina Hurricanes in overtime. The Flyers will be coming into this one. Just a weird situation in Philadelphia right now. They sit 3rd in the Metropolitan Division, so that is a playoff spot. They are, 4 points up on the Washington Capitals. The Capitals have 2 games in hand, and they're scratching captain Sean Couturier as of late. Veteran Cam Atkinson as well. Just a weird situation for the Flyers. John Tortorella, makes some confounding decisions sometimes. Stubborn, doesn't really back it up with much rationale. And we'll see if that turmoil carries over into tomorrow's game. Couturier, for his part, doesn't seem too happy about it. A guy who would fit in with the Bruins if his contract wasn't prohibitive, but that's a discussion for the offseason. Bruins, Flyers, Saturday afternoon, a 1 p.m. Eastern start in Philadelphia, the start of a 6-game road trip for these Bruins, who are now 6-3-1 over their past 10. Philadelphia will be coming into this one 4-4-2 over their past 10. Only 2 wins in their past 5 games, one against Toronto, but one also against San Jose. Samuel Ersson has been carrying the load in net with Carter Hart away for legal reasons on leave. He's got an .898 save percentage. And again, it will likely be Linus Ullmark in net for the Bruins as he's rocking that .914 save percentage, 19, 7-7 this season in 34 starts, or 34 appearances, I should say. Owen Tippett, hot for the Flyers right now. He's got 8 points over his last 5 games, including 3 goals, 5 assists. Boston led by David Pastrnak, who's got 4 goals, 2 assists for 6 points. Justin Brazeau also red hot with 3 goals in his past 2 games, making a big contribution from the fourth line. Philly has the league's worst power play, so the Bruins should be able to keep them at bay that way. But they do have a third-ranked penalty kill, which the Bruins need to be aware of. I'm sure they are. Boston's power play currently rolling at 23.8%, which is good for 8th. These two teams not very good in the faceoff dot, both sub 50%. Philly does have pretty potent offense. They're 10th ranked, averaging forget that. They're 22nd ranked with a goals per game of 2.91. The Bruins are 10th ranked at 3.32. Flyers allowing 3.01 goals per game. Boston allowing only 2.73. I've said it many times, but this is a winnable game for the Bruins, although the Flyers could be a little desperate, seeing as they're fighting for their playoff lives here, although you might not know it based on the coaching decisions. It's a transition year for them as well. They're more on the rebuilding side than the Bruins are, but they've been getting some success. They're relying on some younger players, Tippett, Joel Farabee, Morgan Frost, Cam York on the blue line. There are some positive pieces there, so it's not a game to be overlooked, but the Bruins should take this one. That's it for today's episode, for this week's episodes. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. Please do take care of yourselves. A lot of basketball coming up for us this weekend with our middle son playing like 5 games in 2 different towns. Try to keep an eye on this game. And if there's anything big that breaks, drop a short on YouTube. So subscribe there as well. Please do take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you again here on Monday on Locked On Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day.